yeah, so that was that. And in terms of Rolf Dobelli, I was just telling you about him last week. I got another of his books that came through, but I don't need it. Success through less, the 52 habits standing between you and your best life. I just don't need these books anymore at this stage in life. Life, if you make it really simple, is very simple. And it's this: work, get new skills, love the people around you, be busy, even if it's not with work, with your hobbies. Try and pursue a passion at the same time as your regular job. Look after your health and try and surround yourself with the right people, including the people that you get into relationships with. That's it. You don't need anything more than that. If you do need more, then sure, you can pick up these kind of books, but I'm in a different life stage now where I want to live rather than read about living, if that makes sense. But when I was younger, again, I said to you guys, these books sort of feel like a cash grab. His first two books are amazing. If you're going to read any of his books, read his behavioral economics and behavioral psychology books. They're fantastic. The Art of Thinking Clearly, The Art of the Good Life. I got rid of the one that I showed you. Do you know why? I'll tell you why. You know that chapter that I was reading out to you? It was about, I'd been looking through the index and I chose that chapter to just read to you. It was about marriage. And he'd said, you know, if you've come back from a business trip and your significant other has just cluttered the place up and or decorated the place in a way that you don't like, you should say something. And I was saying to you guys, right on, right on. Of course you must. You must be happy in the environment that you're in as well, right? But then after that, after I left you guys, because I hadn't opened that book until I spoke to you guys. After I left you guys, I read the rest of it, and actually there was two sections. The first part was him telling you actually what not to do. He was being tongue in cheek. He was hamming it up. The second part of the same chapter is him telling you what you actually should do. So he was being tongue in cheek by saying, oh, you know, you should state your case, cause you should express how you feel. What he was saying that you should do in reality is compromise, because this relationship with your significant other is going to be the most important relationship that you have in your life, other than probably the one with your children, your parents, but really probably this one because you're constantly together, right? And in an intimate way. There's no other person that you're going to share that kind of love with. And you know, the first thing I thought when I read that second part, and I'd never thought like this in the past. This is why I say to you, you have to be so careful what you watch on the internet. I didn't even have this vocabulary, this in my lingua. It wasn't something I used. It wasn't something I was aware of. I never thought about men in this way. But the first thing I thought when I read that was simp in PewDiePie's voice. And I was horrified. I was actually horrified, you guys, because in the past I would have just thought, great, he's a collaborative person. He's someone who is a team player. But that's what I thought once I realized that he was being tongue in cheek about the first part, and what he was actually saying is you should be collaborative and compromise. I was so distraught by thinking that I thought, you know, because I get on with collaborative people, I get on with people who are team players. I'm not the girl that would be dating guys like Tate who are controlling and who date women who sort of follow their way and their rules. I'm not someone that can be controlled simply because I don't control other people. So if I don't control other people, why on earth would I be controlled, if that makes sense? And I fundamentally don't agree with controlling people. regardless of what sex you are. So in the past, I would have been like, great, he's someone who's just a team player. So I just thought, imagine if someone like me, who didn't even need the manosphere, is watching that type of content and it's affecting me in this way, then what must it be doing to impressionable young men? Awful. But the real reason I gave up reading that book, after that page, I went back to the index and then I chose another chapter to read quickly, because it's one of these books that you don't have to read in order. You can just flick to whichever chapter you want to and just start from there. So I found the chapter on intuition, and the first tongue-in-cheek part is always listen to your intuition, do whatever your intuition says, follow whatever your heart or your heart is telling you to do. And then the second part, what he really believes, he's like, don't do that, be logical, etc., etc. As soon as I read that, I just discarded this book immediately, because your intuition might save your life, and it might also save someone else's life. I do find some of the manosphere content around women's intuition quite disparaging. Like they take the mick out of women and their intuition. I don't think it's necessarily just a woman's skill. I think anyone can be intuitive. However, if we're going to compare the two sexes, potentially women, I don't know actually, because I think men are sometimes very, very good at reading the air as well. The reason I think men are very good at reading the air is because with men, they have to always be aware of other men trying to get into fights with them. And so I think men have a very nice way of being able to control the energy, or not let things get out of hand just for their safety. But maybe that's reading the air, and that's something that's slightly different from intuition. In any case, as soon as I read that, I thought, no, this book's definitely not for me, because the more I fought my intuition, the more I've disregarded my intuition and not listened to it, the more things have gone wrong. And I'm working really hard to go back to who I used to be. I'm one of these people who is actually logical as well, partly because I am just logical too, but also because I was trained in that way by my dad, because my dad's very logical, even though he's also very emotionally, he has so much depth. So I sort of flit in and out, but the more I've leant towards logic, the more things have just not worked out for me, and it's really gone against me. So as soon as I read that, I was like, okay, this book is definitely not for me. Not only because now I've called this man a simp, and there's a slight feeling of disrespect towards him, like he can't even voice how he feels about his own home. I do think you need to be collaborative and compromise in relationships, otherwise you're always going to be at odds. However, your house is your space to be yourself and to relax, and if you don't feel relaxed in your own home, then where are you going to feel relaxed? I feel quite strongly about that, because I like to maintain a very minimalistic house, and because I work really hard on the house, I think it's fair that people sort of follow my hope and desire to keep the house as minimalistic as possible and as neutral as possible. There are no striking, or not striking, because I do like striking colors, artificial colors in this house. Like there's one artificial color that I'm staring at the moment. It's one of those things that you wash the floor with, and it's got a purple head. I can just about manage that, but anything else, everything's going to be just in noir. We've discussed this. So I'd ordered both books at the same time, and this one just came. I'll flick through it, but if I'm going to read anything, you guys, I just sort of want to read fiction, or maybe even autobiographies or biographies. I don't particularly... Autobiographies, I think, can be sort of false. autobiographies when they're written about themselves, right? Because your memory of what's happened is through your lens, and other people don't get to really discuss their side of the story. It's the same reason why I don't understand therapy. And this is not to knock people who use therapy. Do whatever you have to do. Remember, don't listen to me. I've got my own way of doing things, and sometimes it's right, sometimes it's not. I've never understood therapy because when you go into that therapy room, you're going to be telling the therapist, whoever you're speaking to, one side of the story, which is yours. But there are people, but there's so many different sides to the story. It's not just your side to the story. And that therapist is not going to hear all the other people's side of the story. I guess this is why marriage counseling can be quite difficult, because you've got two people with completely different viewpoints on what's happened. But I think that's a more balanced way to do therapy. I think when one person's going in, what if the therapist is just gassing you up and you're the one who's in the wrong? So unless you're a very emotionally intelligent person and can actually accept the flaws that you have and can actually say, you know what, it's my mistake, I screwed up. Unless you're that type of person, then you're going to be going into that therapy room with a very unbalanced story, and the therapist is going to respond. Maybe they can see through this stuff. I'm not sure. Maybe they can pick apart your story and figure out what's really happened. But yeah, that's probably why I've never really understood therapy. Yeah, but that's not to say that you shouldn't go and see a therapist, okay? Don't listen to me. Okay, and then, oh, the football, 25 minutes. The football, I'm going to be watching Iran tomorrow. I've got a busy day tomorrow, actually. I've got to go and pick up a printer. I really hummed and hawed over getting this printer. I really need it, but I got rid of my old one because it broke down. And then this one, I don't want to have anything. Like, the more I get rid of things, the happier and more peaceful I am. So this was like an additional thing to have. And in case I ended up getting it, because I do need it. And then I've got busy day tomorrow. And then in the evening, I'm going to watch the game, the Iran game. Because of course, am I interested in football? I'm not, you guys. I really am. At the World Cup level, it's somewhat more interesting to me, but really I'm only watching it. I'll only be watching it just to sort of watch the Iranian players, especially number 6. Number 6 is a hottie minotti. He's a fine piece of Persian man. Yeah, I was watching some of their interviews and their coaches' interviews, how they feel about how they've been treated. Tijuana. So we've got a list now of places that I need to go to. We've got Spain. Well, I'll be going to Spain again this year, I'm hoping, for drum and bass, if all goes to plan. Ireland, I need to go to Ireland. I've never been. I've not been to Ireland, and I've not been to Northern Ireland. I think they are on the right side of, they always seem to be on the right side of humanity, and they've really impressed me. And Mexico, I've been so impressed by their hospitality and their kindness towards the Iranian players. That's been so impressive to me. It reminded me of a song called Tijuana Girl. Wonder if you guys know this track. When I had come back from Japan, I think the last time I came back from Japan, I knew someone who'd just broken up with his girlfriend, and he had a ticket to see a group called Gomez. And we were just acquaintances. And he said, do you want to go? I knew nothing about Gomez, had never heard their music. And usually before I go, if I were to go and see an act that I've never heard before, not that it's happened Maybe it's happened one other time. But what I would want to do is listen to the tracks just to familiarize myself with the acts before I go. Didn't do that at all. And I thought my assumption was they were American because of this track called Tijuana Girl. And the lyrics are so beautiful, by the way, and I'm not even a lyrics girl. So anyway, I went with this guy, and Tijuana Girl comes on. They start singing Tijuana Girl. I was just so blown away. I was so blown away by this song and how it sounded in this concert hall that I've never forgotten this track. The funny thing is that I never went back to sort of discover Gomez, but I remember it being one of the most incredible concerts I've ever been to, and I will never forget this track. So when I heard that the Iranian players were staying in Tijuana, I just went to hear the song again. Doesn't sound as good as my memory, either live on YouTube or the recorded version, but I still understand why I loved it so much. There's something so simple but so haunting and so touching about it. And the singer's voice, I only discovered a couple of days ago, or rather last week, when I was going back to play this track, that the group is actually a British group. I thought they were American because the singer has that sort of small town, southern, maybe American sound. And the lyrics in Tijuana Girl are not only referencing Mexico, obviously, but also there's a moment, I wish I had my other phone so I could read the lyrics to you. He references San Diego. It's such a beautiful song. So yeah, it reminded me of Gomez and this guy who I think he ended up immigrating. He was about to immigrate to Australia. And the funny thing with him was that he loved drum and bass. And I really like people who have a mixed taste in musical styles like myself. Although there's some genres that I've never got into, like I've never been an indie girl, for example. Like I've never understood the obsession with Oasis or what was the other their nemesis, Blur. I never got that. But I really like Paul Weller. Well, at least one of his tracks is that You Do Something to Me. What a beautiful song. So I'm not really into indie music, but then there are exceptions. Other than that, I think I tend to, and I don't like country. Sorry, country folk. I'm not into country at all. I don't like techno. I hate techno with a passion. I don't even like jungle. Can you believe it? I'm a D&B head, but I just have never taken to jungle. I can listen to it. I can hear it mixed and interspersed with drum and bass, but I could not listen to a full set of jungle. It would just drive me mad. I just think it sounds the same. There's nothing intellectual about it whatsoever. Whereas drum and bass, to me, there's so many styles of drum and bass. And if the DJ is a good DJ, it can be a very intellectual process for me, which might sound so bizarre to people who just don't like drum and bass and don't. We like what we like, right? I think people are always fascinated that I love drum and bass. They don't get it because it doesn't necessarily match who I am. But then I think because maybe in the UK it feels like there's a certain type of person maybe that listens to drum and bass. But I think outside of the UK, the type of people that do listen to drum and bass are just so many types of people. You can't really put them in a box. So yeah, Gomez, Tijuana Girl. So the Mexicans have hospitality in a way that the host country does not. I had to put in my 2 cents, you guys. You know what was really funny? I'll go after I say this. Of course, nothing is personal. So when I arrived at this first aid course today, the first lady that I spoke to, there was her and there was another girl. and she had an American accent. So we started speaking, and then I commented on her accent. She said, well, I've been here since 1990. I'm a dual citizen. She's British American, born in America, obviously, but moved here a long time ago. She's like, I could never live in America. And so we were discussing that, and she said, what's your background? I said, I'm Persian. And as soon as I said that, we had a little moment. It's easy for me to navigate these things because I don't judge the person that comes from the country. Of course I don't. And she's obviously, by her saying that I could never live in America, again, I know why she could never live in America again. So anyway, we had a few brief moments of discussing what's going on between the aggressors and Iran. And then it was like we switched that off and we were just talking about other things, and it was cool. She was the most interesting person for me to speak to actually at this course. A very warm lady and just a nice person. So yeah, it's not personal. We can separate the person from their government. And I need to eat because I'm so hungry. You know what, you guys? My iron, I've lost weight. I've lost weight not because I've had to completely change my diet. It's a head mess because I cannot, it was the last thing that gave me pleasure and joy. I've had to give up drum and bass because of my toe. Can't run. Although I've been pondering over the thought of learning how to rollerblade or even skateboard. My dream is to skateboard, as you know, but there's something really boyish about it that maybe doesn't appeal so much. But that's the dream, to skateboard. I forgot what I was saying. Yeah, I've had to completely make my meals strategic to try and get the most iron out of my meals. If I had it my way, I would be eating oysters and mussels and clams and crab and lovely seafood and fish every single day. Let's not talk about that liver. Cannot believe I broke my red meat eating sabbatical for freaking chicken liver. Might as well have had a doner kebab. I'm sure I would have maybe potentially enjoyed that. Does it have iron? Who knows? It was horrific, guys. It was so horrific. I almost gagged every time I took a bite. I forced myself because that was like the second day of when I started the whole trying to get my iron up, but it was horrific. I don't know how you guys do it. It's like, without being rude, it's like eating dead carcass. And I guess that's what it is. You're eating a dead animal. But that's the smell, and the preparation wasn't even about eating it, but having to get rid of all those white connective tissues. I kid you not, there were lots of moments that was a gag fest, the whole process from start to finish. Suffice it to say, that will never be happening again. And I'm sort of devastated that after all these years since I was a child of not eating red meat, it's been broken for chicken liver. I feel like it could have been done on a more interesting meat, but then again, I couldn't even tell you what red meat would be interesting. The only thing that comes to mind is a doner kebab. Where were we? So I've lost weight because I've had to basically, I'm eating food that I don't really particularly want to eat. And because I'm not enjoying it, I'm leaving the meal unfinished. That is unheard of with this girl. She finishes her plate clean. I'm just leaving these plates half eaten because I'm not enjoying it. And so as a result, that's why in 1 week, I've lost some weight. Insane. So today I went and got sardines after this course. Sardines. Chicken doesn't really have that much iron. I'm having to like, oh, it's so boring, guys. I don't even want to bore you. It's so boring. It's so boring. I'm just like, is my life fun anymore? Is there anything fun about my life? I can't. Yeah, let's not be. No, let's not do that. Today I had fun because being I was making use of my Saturday, right? I felt like I was doing something really useful, and I felt this sadness. This is why I felt this sadness that I had us going around talking about what we did. I don't really like to do that. Like I never tell people what I do. So I felt like I didn't want to talk about what I do. And actually one girl, she didn't even talk about what she did. Anyway, I did. And I just thought this is not who I am. It's not me. And that's why I don't tell people what I do. Because I don't want them to define me by it because it's in such contrast to who I am as a person and my personality. I was just my silly self. Not silly. I'm not I don't want to make it sound like I'm putting myself down. I can be quirky. Like when we were doing this, we had to put these mannequins on the floor. And you know, Dr. ABC, you have to check if they're responding. So I was like, sir, automatically. Sir, can you hear me? Are you okay? Can you hear me? Can you move? Can you move anything? Are you breathing? And then I just smacked the side of this mannequin. So I'm quirky in that way. Like I don't want to be, and I'm I I'm quirky in that sense because I don't want to be afraid or I don't want to be a standard person. I'm not verbalizing that well. I don't want to be someone who is afraid of being a little bit different. So sometimes I'm like that just so that I don't have that fear. Because I think when I was in Japan, it sort of made me more mainstream. And I was like, that really annoyed me because I'm not a mainstream kind of person.